It's time to start your morning by taking 5. Here's your host, Matt McMaster.
You're listening to Take 5, quick 5-minute take on the biggest things happening in Nebraska sports. I am your host, Matt McMaster, and today we are going to be doing the Nebraska football position rankings. Basically, I will be telling you what position group I'm the most confident in, what position group I'm the least confident in. I'll give you a couple reasons as to why I feel the way that I feel and why they might be above or below certain position groups. We'll start off, got to get through a lot, so be real quick. Wide receiver. You'll see here that through this list, I love the combination of depth, guys who've produced, and young talent that has high ceilings. This wide receiver group has everything. Has guys who've already produced before, and Ja'Cory Barney and Dane Key and Isaiah Hunter. But they also have some very, very good freshmen in Jamar Mosey and in Cortez Mills, who I think can be game changers in this position group. And so when you combine the fact that Key, Hunter, and Barney have caught passes in the Power 5 conference level, have been effective wide receivers, and you factor in that you have two guys like Mills and Mosey who are blue chip wide receiver prospects, I think that combination of production, talent, and high ceiling makes this the best position group on this team right now. My second is secondary. I think that the wide receiver group has a higher ceiling than the secondary group. The secondary group might be the deepest in terms of names that have played football, right? You have Malcolm Hartzog. You have Marquise Buford. You have Deshaun Singleton. You have Sierra Wright, who had a great year last year. Then on top of that, you add in a guy like Bly Hill, where, he was injured last year, but when we saw him and, all we've heard is when he's at full health, he's a legit. I mean, look, if he didn't get hurt, he was going to be the starter last year. So you have a guy like Bly Hill there. Then you got to add in the young guns, right? You got Donovan Jones. You got Caleb Benning. They both looked incredible in the Pinstripe Bowl. We've heard nothing but great things about Amari Sanders, the freshman, during spring practice. I just think the combination of veterans, the combinations of production, the combination of ceiling makes this the second best group here. That's why, but I think the wide receivers just edge them out in terms of ceiling just a little bit. So that's why I have them under there. My third group, give me the Jacks. Give me the Jacks and the linebackers. I really like, once again, it's about the ceiling and it's about production. You have returning production in Javen Wright and Marquise Watson-Trent. Now, Wright has to be healthy. He hasn't done that, but if he's healthy, he's a high production player. Marquise Watson-Trent hasn't played Power 5 football, but even if he gets like 80% of his numbers from this season to last season, or last season to this season, transitioning into Power 5 football, he's still going to be a very effective player because that's how good he was at the level that he was playing. And then you got to add in Vincent Shavers. You got to add Willis McGahee. These are two guys who I think have superstar potential, all Big Ten potential. Williams Nwaneri falls in this group as well, coming off the edge. I think that he can be an incredibly productive player too. And so you have a lot of talent, you have returning production, you got Deshaun McCullough, who is going to be, I think, a really big factor, the transfer from Oklahoma. I think he's going to be finally sticking to that one position. He was kind of a tweener in Oklahoma going between positions. I think putting him at one spot will be very productive for him. He's going to be awesome in the run game. So give me the Jacks third. Then this is controversial. I was going in between these two groups, and it really just came down to who the backups were. I like the tight end group next on my fourth best group here. The reason I like the tight end group is not only do you have a high-quality tight end, in my opinion, in Luke Lindenmeyer, but then you also have two dynamic guys in Heinrich Haarberg and Carter Nelson, who I think can add an incredible layer to the passing game when given the opportunity. Now, Nelson's got to get healthy. Haarberg has to learn the position better. But I just think that having those two behind what already you have a solid tight end in Lindenmeyer, I think puts this group right above the quarterbacks because Dylan Raiola has the potential to be awesome, but he hasn't been awesome. He can be awesome, but he hasn't shown it fully yet in a 60 minutes from week to week to week. And I think at the end of the year, my hope is that he skyrockets, and my belief is that he'll skyrocket up this board. But if we're just taking off of production of last year, heading into this year, that's why I have him in the fifth spot in terms of position groups, how good I think they are this year. And also, too, I worry about the backup quarterback situation. You have two young guys in Davila and Latif. They're still very much learning the offense. They're still very much learning how to play college football. And then on top of that, Jalen Gramstad right now is the second quarterback, listed as the second quarterback. He hasn't played and produced at a Power 5 level. And so you have three guys essentially who, if Dylan Raiola gets hurt, they're going to be thrown into the fire. And that's a really scary thing. You don't have a guy where, they've kind of played a little and taken their lumps and have things they can learn off of in terms of live game action. You don't have that from any of your three guys. And, two of them are still very much learning this playbook. And so I think that Dylan Raiola is a better quarterback, and will be a better quarterback than Luke Lindenmeyer as a tight end. But I think that what Lindenmeyer has behind him, and I didn't even bring up Mac Markaway, I think that's better, which is why I put the tight ends above the quarterbacks. But I think that Dylan has the potential to put this position group number one just on his own. He just has to go out there and do it. The next group is O-line. I have them behind quarterbacks. When you look at this O-line, it's interesting because, Gatula is a good tackle and Pritchett has a ton of talent. You feel good about Spindler at that guard spot, but Justin Evans, he played guard last year. He's been a center before. We've heard really good things about how he's been playing. I just kind of have to see it. You still have Prohaska and Corcoran, and then you have, a lot of depth in terms of younger guys, Talmoa, Machacek, Sam Sledge is in there. Still have Grant Bricks, who's going to be, hopefully Bricks is just the solidified backup at tackle. Lutovsky is still, going to be Lutovsky. So I think this group has a lot of talent. It's got a lot of solid play. They just don't have that, superstar. They don't have that, he's going to be a for sure draft pick. I think Pritchett could do that. He's got the potential to do that. I'm not down on the O-line at all. I think the O-line is actually going to be pretty solid. But it's just I'm just not jumping for joy in terms of what they have. Now, this is a good line of demarcation here of I feel good about wide receivers, the Jackson, the linebackers, secondary, the tight ends, the QB, and the O-line. I'm not nervous about those groups at all. It's really just how much better are they going to be than one another. I'm nervous about the running back position. You only have one guy that has taken carries. And I like Quinn Knives, and I've seen Quinn Knives tape, and he did incredible things in New Jersey. But it's just we're at the point where it's man, I was really hoping we were going to see something in the Pinstripe Bowl, and he just didn't get that opportunity. And I was hoping that we were going to see something from him last season, and he just was never really able to break through. And, that is a little worrisome to me because while Lemma Johnson and Dante Dowdell are good running backs, it's not like they were Melvin Gordon or, Monty Ball or, Justin Jackson. They weren't these top ball carriers. It was still very much if you were a great running back, you had an opportunity to take that job. He didn't do that. He hasn't taken carries before. We haven't seen him run before, and that's not even accounting for, Mekhi Nelson and Connor Booth and Parker. And so I like Emmett a lot. I think Emmett's a good running back. I don't think Emmett's a great running back. And so I just don't think his presence enough just carries this group up to the top. And you just don't know what they have behind him. And then D-line. I think the D-line is talented. I think Riley Van Poppel's talented. I think Cam Lenhart's really talented. Elijah Judy is a veteran. Jalen George got hurt, before spring. And so we haven't seen a lot of him or heard a lot about him, but I think, there's an expectation that he's going to be able to go there and contribute. Keanu Davis is a fine prospect as well. There's just no production. There's zero production. These guys have not taken a ton of snaps. These guys have not proven that they can play at a high level consistently at the defensive line position. And that's in part because you had Ty Robinson and Nash Huntmaker manning those positions, but those guys were great. And they played a ton of snaps, and now they're stepping out, and those are massive shoes you have to fill. And especially in the beginning of the season, it might be too much to fill for these guys. And just so I hope they come out there and they surprise me. But if you're just going off of experience and stats and production, these guys definitely have the least out of the entirety of the group above them. And so I think D-line is last on my position Power Group's rankings, it's the one I'm the most worried about, and unfortunately, I think it's probably the most important that they got here. So, in order, wide receivers, then the secondary, then the linebackers and jacks. Then I'll say tied is tight end and quarterback. I feel pretty much the same about those two groups. O-line, running back, then D-line. So those are my power rankings. If you disagree, tweet at me at Matt McMedia. I've been Matt McMaster. That's been Take 5.